Welcome to the Weekly Well. Last week, we took a look at the story of David and Goliath. This week, I want to look at David again, but several years later as he is king. We have recorded for us in 2 Samuel chapter 11, the account of David and Bathsheba. And what's really striking to me is what is going on here with David. We have seen earlier in 1 Samuel 13, and then again it's referred to in Acts chapter 13, that David is a man after God's own heart. And yet in 2 Samuel, when he sins with Bathsheba and then has her husband Uriah put to the front lines where David knows he's going to be killed, essentially arranging for the murder of Uriah, it's insane to me that how can this be a man after God's own heart? That's not the picture I see here. We have one chapter later, in chapter 12 of 2 Samuel, the prophet Nathan confronts David on this sin. He tells him a story of a wealthy man with many sheep, a poor man with one sheep, and how the wealthy man goes to the poor man's house, steals his one sheep, and slaughters it to provide a meal for a guest that he has. David is seething with anger. He's angry at this situation. But then when Nathan points out to him, David, you are that man, David becomes quite remorseful and is suddenly face to face with his own guilt and the fault that lies with him. So how is it that David is a man after God's own heart? Well, he's not called that simply because David is a perfect man. He's clearly not. He's not called that because David makes no mistakes, because he clearly does. We have an example just in the previous chapter that he's made a terrible one. So why is he called a man after God's own heart? It's because when David makes a mistake, he knows where to go. When he is confronted with it, he owns it, and then he repents of it and asks God for restoration. When David knows that he has sinned, when he is made aware of the tremendousness of his sin, he goes to God, he seeks God, he leans on God, and he asks God to restore him and to renew him. That's an important lesson for us too, because like David, we will not go through our lives mistake-free. Clearly, we make plenty. How do we become people after God's own heart? It's about where we go when the mistakes happen. Do we go to God? Do we ask for forgiveness? Do we seek His restoration and His healing and His mercy? I pray that that would be a marker in our lives, not that we would be mistake-free or sinless, because I don't think we can be on this side of heaven, but that we would seek God, seek His forgiveness, seek His own heart, that we would become truly people after God's own heart, because we would completely and totally seek after it day after day. May God bless you. May you be like David in this regard. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.